Hi and welcome to Tabletop Gaming. My name is Charlie and I thought today I would merge two things that I love. One being D&D and two being Christmas, to give you an idea of 10 of the best sort of gifts you can buy for a D&D player at Christmas. Now this is going to go through some of the obvious ones, or the ones that we personally as D&D players think are obvious but always appreciated, and then some things that you might not have thought of. So perfect for any level of D&D player with as much or as little as you know about their D&D playing habits. Now whilst this is a 10 of the best, I am going to sneak in a couple of extras, a little honourable mention here and there, so that there is plenty of ideas for you to go away with, and hopefully buy that perfect gift for that D&D player in your life. You're welcome! In at number one is what I think is probably the most obvious answer to this, which is dice. Dice are wonderful, and there is something really tactile that it really brings to your in-person games. Now, of course, you can play with them when you're playing online. You just have to roll and report your results, so you need to be telling the truth. But you can get them in a range of prices as well. So, if it's a small Secret Santa gift, for example, something like these, which I picked up from a friendly local game store, cost me £6. So we're not talking tons, it's just a nice little extra. And that little jingle is so satisfying. Now you can then increase that, so you can then go for even just different colours, for example. So this is in the same set but different colour. This cost me £10 from a friendly local game store, because I try to do that where I can. Or you can go all the way up to things like metal dice or gemstone dice. So the price variation can be quite big. Ultimately, with what you're buying, the price range is there. You get what you pay for. You're going to have your standard sort of plastic normal dice if you're playing at the lower end. If you're at the higher end, I'd be expecting to see something more impressive about them, such as them being weightier, or them including certain features, or being handmade, or being resin, or being all sorts. Head to Etsy for your best probable handmade ones, is where you generally find stuff. But otherwise, there are plenty of websites out there. If you're not used to Googling for this, you want something like D&D Dice will do. Set of 7 dice, D20, those sort of key terms should bring up the ability to then have a look through, and you can pick up some pretty cool ones. In addition, there's a lot of sort of novelty ones as well, so they still do the job, but they have certain features about them. So, for example, there are some that have got cute little pandas in that I'm probably going to buy for a friend at Christmas. These may not be as well weighted, but it's still fun to have and perfectly usable for a couple of sessions as well. The alternative to those, of course, is buying D&D dice directly. So they, for example, have something like this, which I absolutely adore. These are their Dice and Miscellany sets. I can't say miscellany. Is it miscellany or miscellany? I'm never sure. And they come with more than just dice, but they do come with dice that are themed to the set. So if, for example, you're playing The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, you could pick up these. They also have an Icewind Dale one, for example, which are a cooler colour that match the campaign that you're playing. So if you're playing with them, or you know they're playing a certain campaign, these can be quite a good thing because you get extra things. So you get maps, for example. The box itself can be used as a dice tray. We'll come on to that in a second. And you're also going to get things like, there are 19 double-sided cards with descriptions and illustrations of characters, creatures, games, and other features of the Witchlight Carnival. So, dice, also dice. Both great ideas, and I've put them in one. Then we move on to number 2 in our list, which is dice trays. Now, for the uninitiated, when you're rolling dice, you'll find that actually rolling multiple of them sees them scattering across the table into who knows where, falling off the table, goodness knows what's going on. A dice tray is just a way of keeping them safe in one square box. Now, as well, for a reason as to why I've put these on the list specifically, is we did our first in-person game of D&D very, very recently. We did a one-shot, and only one of us remembered to bring a dice tray. What that meant was when we then attempted to roll the dice, they were sort of spilling over and such. And if you're quite precious about your dice, which I can be, depends on which ones I'm rolling, it's nice to keep them in one space, and it's nice to be able to see that result nice and clearly. Now, dice trays themselves, any budget you want. You can get sort of fabric ones, leather ones, you can get ones that are actual boxes and trays which you can store other things in. So your budget doesn't really matter on these. You could go for sort of cheap dice, expensive dice tray, or get the two together, or whatever you fancy. Now, once again, because I'm slightly obsessed with this, is I have got one of the previous versions of this, and I love it, and I also use it as a dice tray because it comes quite nicely in a box. I will just very quickly show you what that looks like. Now, a good shout of why I like these is because they're felt lined as well, so you still get the sound of the dice rolling, but it's not quite so click-clacky. It's a little bit more muted. So, opening this up. So, this box, you will see it's got this felt inside, and you can actually use both of those. Now, that box itself is what you'll store the stuff you get in, but Look at the artwork on that. How nice is that? Utterly obsessed. I'm so obsessed with this set, and with the previous ones as well. These are like my favourite things. I will do a full show off of those in a separate video, but it's quite a nice thing. And as we mentioned with the dice, let's just have a quick look at those too. Got the orange ones and enough D20s just to get you through that game. Nice thing about those, you can also pick up personalised ones or ones with certain things printed on them. So if you want to add something witty or funny or specific to the person that you're buying it for, you're more than welcome to. And whilst this is D&D themed, if they prefer others, there are some that you can get that are like Cthulhu based ones or whatever it is that they prefer playing. In at number 3, very similar vein, which is why I'll rush through this one, is a dice tower. So this is a method of rolling your dice that ensures they're sort of well rolled, and you just sort of usually drop it in at the top. It'll do some sort of fandangled thing and then roll out your result. Now the reason these are quite nice is because they add a little bit of extra tension while you're waiting for that result to come out, but also then saves the need for a dice tray because it then sits quite nicely in there. So it's sort of an either or. Now you can get some quite impressive ones, although it's not D&D related. The one that I always think of is the wingspan one, which is a little bird feeder table thing, and you drop your dice in to then come out to know what resources you've got as part of a board game, but you can get some quite funky ones for D&D specifically, whether that's just a straightforward dice tower, whether it's themed in a certain way, or whether even, for example, it's an STL file, which means you'll be able to print it off using a 3D printer. There's another option for you. So, dice aside, we are going for number 4, and number 4 is a little bit different. This is a Hero Forge miniature. Now, the reason I say about this is because, first of all, I am slightly obsessed with building miniatures on this site, but there are plenty of cool things that you can do. So, maybe you're part of the campaign that the person you're purchasing it for is in, or you just know them well enough or can get access to their character sheet. It might be that you're able to build them a character based on their own specifications. So here is what my character is like, here is what my character would do, here are the sort of accessories my character would have, and be able to create on their website a little miniature that you can then have created and sent to you in various different sort of materials, so you can pick what it's made out of, as well as I believe if it's painted or not, which would be the one that I would absolutely pick. Now of course, if you don't know what they look like, gift vouchers are available, so you can pick those up and give them to them as a way of saying, hey look, this is cool, you should do it, but I don't know how to do it, so make your own and have fun. Because I'm not being funny, even the builder for this is fun, so go check those out. Price range for that varies, of course, depending on what elements you pick and what it's made out of and how you want to do it. But you can also pick it up, again, you can pay for the STL file and have that printed yourself if you have a 3D printer or if they have a 3D printer. At number 5 are some of my favourite things to recommend, which are Loki battle mats. I think these are wonderful. These are just a spiral bound massive set of maps that you can place out on your table to be able to play your games in person. Now I personally have used Roll20 for a long time because we've been playing at a distance. I only started playing during COVID, but these on our one shots have been absolutely marvellous. Look at the variation of stuff. Now there are multiple of these, they do these in different formats, they do them available for download, and you can get, I think, different ones, you can get smaller ones, you can get bigger ones. I don't think you can get bigger ones actually, I think I've got the biggest, but you've got plenty, and they're all squared, so you can have multiple of them and set them up together, so you haven't got to worry if they already have these or not. The other thing they do are the boards. They look a little something like this, and they fold out, so these are a little bit more reminiscent of, say, a board game board. They then lay beautifully flat on your table ready for you to play. So you've got standard on this side, or you've got green for your grass on this side. So that's just another option of theirs. They also have the smaller books, so price range again can really vary. They have much smaller versions, so pocket sized versions that are about this big that are super cute, or the larger ones here. But again, I love these. The fact that they're spiral bound, so they lay flat, the fact that they're sort of laminated paper, card, whatever it is, pages, laminated pages. You can scribble on those, you can pick up stickers that you can use to put things down, or just pick up miniatures and put the miniatures on there. This is really nice, especially for a DM, but not limited to a DM. These are quite cool gifts to give people because they really enhance your game without being too expensive. Up next is merchandise, but more specifically, actual play merchandise. Almost every D&D player I've encountered when I've spoken to them about this has had a favourite playthrough that they enjoy watching. So the characters that they like seeing, or the series or settings that they like. The big one, of course, being Critical Role. That's probably the biggest and the one that everybody refers to the most, and has probably the highest viewership overall. My personal favourite is Dimension 20. Almost anything off there, but Mischief and Magic is just stunning. I've got a best friend who is obsessed with the Oxventure series, so that goes into, they went into Blades in the Dark as well, a nice little veer off. But the point being is that most D&D players enjoy watching other D&D players play D&D or a version of D&D. If you know what it is that the person you're buying for is into in terms of, is it Dimension 20? Great! I hear they've got a store! You'll be able to then go and pick up something for them of their favourite sort of merchandise wise. And I won't say too much because they do watch these videos, but I have picked up an actual play piece of merchandise for a Christmas present this year. So I mean it when I say I think these are good gifts. Up next, and perhaps similar to a previous entry when we were talking about those Hero Forge miniatures, is a character commission. These crop up quite a lot on Facebook, so get yourself in a Facebook group and maybe ask around for recommendations to get an idea of where to start, but also Etsy, Instagram, general places for character commissions. So, you know from the Hero Forge, you might know what they look like, but maybe you don't want to go as far as giving them a miniature because perhaps they generally play online. Well, in fact, you can get a commission made of a portrait, for example, of that character or a certain scenario within that, or even the whole party if you want to. It's a really kind of like personal gift because it's something that they've created that you're giving them something beautiful out of, and is quite a nice way also to get some artwork on your walls. Let's have some nerdy artwork. Love it. Up next, I have a travel box. Now that's really non-specific as to what I mean, but I can't think of a better way of phrasing it. It is the case of things to take your D&D stuff with you. So, it turns out I have a lot of dice, and taking them to actual plays, I never know which dice I'm going to want because I don't know the vibe of the game until I get there. If it's a one-shot, for example, I don't know what it's going to be like, so I will take all of them with me. It would be nice to have somewhere to store all of those, with maybe a pencil and maybe a character sheet or some spell cards or something along those lines. Now, there are plenty available. Critic, I believe, do some really great ones here, but just ways in which you can store your D&D stuff. Now, to make do, and just to give you a visual example, I had previously been using this, which is a Gamegenic watchtower. It is not designed for D&D, it is designed for trading cards, and that is what is currently now in it. But for a long time, if I just show you, we'll pop this front off, it had space in the top for dice, and then space in the bottom as just a general drawer that you can have either way, one or the other, in which I had spell cards and a folded up character sheet and a pencil. So it works, but there are more unique D&D style ones that you could also use, or even that one. It's just a cool option for a number of things. But also having something that you can grab and go and know that you've got everything in one place is quite helpful. And also means you can go to multiple games with different groups and know that you have everything in one place and able to take it with you. You can go very elaborate with these if you want to get sort of an elaborate style gift, or you can go for pretty simple, just something nice to be able to take D&D stuff with. You'll find it on the internet. Another option is something like a subscription. Now, I promote subscriptions anyway. I think they're delightful. And by the way, you can pick up one to Tabletop Gaming magazine. A perfect Christmas present for any tabletop gamer. But the ones I'm talking about specifically this time are more D&D related. So something, for example, like a subscription to D&D Beyond, a subscription to Roll20. It just gives you a couple of extra features in things that you're likely to be using. Do check that they are using them first though, or would like to at the very least, and allows them to sort of enjoy that in a further way, or even just not have to pay for it, which is always nice. Now, whilst I consider those two to probably be the biggest ones and the ones that I personally would consider subscriptions to, there are other things you can do. So I mentioned most D&D players will watch actual plays. I pay monthly to be able to watch Dropout, which allows me to see all of those actual plays that I talked about that I really like from Dimension 20. It might be that they have a Patreon for specific ones that you could sign up on their behalf for. There's just some nice little bits you can do that mean that the gift isn't just Christmas, it also lasts throughout the year as well. And finally, although there is going to be an honourable mention, we'll come to that in a second, is sort of being able to actually play with people. So suggesting, why don't we play a game? Now, it might be that you try your hand at DMing for the first time and say that to your DM, I'll give it a go, don't you worry, I'll run a one-shot. Let's see how it goes. How bad can it be, right? Oh. It might be that you haven't played before, but you'd like to learn or want to learn, and it might be that you're then able to create a group together and do nice things. The whole idea of D&D is the social aspect and the play aspect. So if you're buying a present for them from the perspective of having never played, maybe ask them. Maybe they want to teach you how to play, and maybe you'll enjoy it, and maybe they'll be buying for you next year. Maybe you do know how to play and you offer to GM. Maybe you offer an in-person game or anything along those lines that keeps it nice and exciting. exciting. Now that's a free option, of course, to be able to play those games or to be able to run those games. Otherwise, I recommend you can pick up sort of one-shots from things like Drive Through RPG that will be D&D themed or even Christmas themed. I'm so obsessed with some of the Christmas themed ones. I'm almost certainly going to purchase like a whole stack of them and just see what we can do with it. It's nice and exciting. Because those two are options. You can buy one-shots for the person you're buying for, but it's probably a little bit nicer if you're like, hey, I've got a one-shot, but you can play it as well. You haven't got to put the work in. Just an option. Now, the last thing I want to say about is the books themselves. So obviously, there is a ton that D&D do. I've mentioned the Dice and Miscellany, still don't know. And I think that is a wonderful gift in itself and comes with a lot included. But there is a lot of D&D stuff you can get. There is a beautiful map that you can pick up that I've been eyeing for ages. There are the books themselves. The books are a little bit tricky because it depends what your DM is doing or how strictly they're playing through things to know what they're getting, and whether they bought it themselves is also one that you can never be too sure of. You'd have to ask or be subtle or just check out their bookshelf. Actually, it's easier than I thought. But still, you have a different style of book that you can pick up. So I've got a couple just to explain the difference very, very briefly. We'll do a separate video on it. But you have some books which are specifically adventures. They will take you through a whole new adventure in a different area with different things being built into them. The example, Icewind Dale. Great. I love this cover as well. You will see that there are two different covers. One, if you buy from somewhere like Amazon, for example, which will be their standard cover, and then you have an alternative cover that usually is soft touch and just looks beautiful that you can pick up directly from game stores. So that's where you'll find those. The alternative to that is something like a book that gives you more information on something. So the new Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, that will give you information on dragons specifically that you can incorporate into play. The other one that I have hold of is our Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where she gives you more information on like objects and magical tattoos and puzzles and all sorts of wonderful things included in here. Again, this is one of the alternative covers, so doesn't it look delightful? Finally, there are a couple that sort of fill in little gaps that maybe you don't need to do a whole campaign like Icewind Dale to be able to get the most from a book. Maybe you just want to sort of hop in and out. There are two recommendations I would give. One is Candlekeep Mysteries, and the other is The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. So Candlekeep works really well because it just gives you sort of a couple of adventures that you can play, and you can do those as a one-shot. They're no full commitment if you're already playing, for example, a weekly game of Icewind Dale. If you're then handed another adventure book, it can be quite tricky. Candlekeep Mysteries mean that you can just dip in and out and pop one in here or there, or maybe it's just like generalised one-shots. Alternatively, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and the reason, also, by the way, this whole cover is so beautiful. I love it so much. They're just beautiful books. But this one is the story of a carnival that touches down every 8 years. And what that means is you can embed it within your campaign. So you can be playing, as I am, a weekly campaign, and then suddenly we're going to go off on a tangent because the carnival has appeared and we'll play through some of the things in here. Benefit of doing so, of course, is even if you don't use a ton from it, it might be that you pull some extra items or a different character type or something along those lines without, again, the commitment of saying, I bought you a book, run me a campaign, or interrupting the campaign that they're running. Those are your other options, and I suppose the 11th option being buy a book. Which type of book depends on what it is that you fancy giving. So there you have it, 10 gifts or springboard ideas for your D&D player in your life who needs a Christmas gift. Hopefully they're on the nice list and they'll get everything they wanted and some stuff they didn't think you knew you could get, because that's always cool. Now you can find more from us at tabletopgaming.co.uk. Please do like and subscribe and leave me a comment. What would you like to receive from Santa this year? What's your D&D optimum gift, or the one that you give out all the time? Where do you find your things? Tell me everything. I love reading the comments and I respond to all of them. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.